having to do with other types of monitoring of vital signs and whatever. But this is something which is required for seniors to live safely and effectively outside the nursing homes, outside retirement homes, and to live independently. And that's a major theme. Next slide, please. So all this great technology is wonderful, right? We all know about technology, and there are many products out there. But ultimately, what is it that will make this whole thing take off? You can't just build a better mousetrap and expect that people come to your door, obviously. So the first and foremost thing is product awareness. You really have to make people, the industry and the market know about who you are and what you build. And if you're a small company, to do it without $50 million being plowed into advertising. So that is something which has to get done, and it's an important thing. The next thing is that the solution really must address the top concerns that seniors have. And that is concerns regarding their safety, wellness, and independence. Again, it may seem obvious, but sometimes it's not quite obvious. The third thing is it has to be affordable. Obviously, in many cases, seniors do not have, or the caregivers may not want to spend a lot, or the seniors themselves will not be able to afford a lot. It has to be a solution which really people can afford and they feel comfortable about paying for. If they want to do it through a payer system, the payer system has to agree to subsidize it in some fashion. The caregiver to senior bond, which we talked about earlier, that's a powerful theme as well. And that is, again, something which is critical. If you do not have that, then it really weakens the whole proposition. And the final thing, which, again, may seem obvious, but it really, really has to work. There are lots of solutions out there which go to the 90% level, and then, okay, the last 10% is the hardest. It takes almost double the time to get there. But it really has to work. It cannot just be some cool technology and doesn't work at all. It's not about some interesting thing that you put together, and then, by the way, it's unreliable about half the time. It has to work all the time. So fundamentally, this is what's required. This is a tidal wave that is coming to the market. It will not go away no matter what happens. No matter what happens with the economy of the country or anything to do with terrorism or whatever it is, people are going to age. The number of people in the senior bracket will double no matter what happens. This is a market that is happening, and we all have to deal with it. So that's essentially why we all need to mobilize for such products and for offering these to the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijay. And next we'll have George. So the solution to the terrorist problem is that senior cyborg? That's it, right? Okay.
My name is George Elwell, and I own Silent Call Communications. I started my business 22 years ago, and primarily it was started to aid people who are deaf and deafblind. My brother-in-law is deaf, and so I asked him one time how he would know if he had a fire, and he said when he smelled the smoke. At the time, I was with overseas operations at GM and knew the technology was a lot better than just smelling the smoke. So I started developing products, and we were the first in the industry to have radio control products so that they send signals to various receivers to activate strobe lights or bed vibrators, body-worn receivers like pager systems. And they monitor doorbells, telephones, smoke detectors, fire systems, carbon monoxide, weather alert, and person-to-person paging. They are used a lot in primarily individuals' homes so that the person can live more independently. They can, once they take out a hearing aid, if they are hard of hearing, they don't hear smoke detectors, they don't hear doorbells. And so one of the biggest problems, of course, is that whenever someone like UPS is delivering something to the door, they no longer hear the knock on the door or the doorbell ring. And so our products fit right into helping the people to be able to stay home longer. And we had a lot of people that were saying, well, I'd call my mom or I'd call my dad, and they never hear the phone ring. So with our system, it's able to send a radio signal to the receiver for them, and then they know that they've got a phone call. One of the things that I've always wanted to do was to bring out a watch, something that was smaller, that would be a little more user-friendly, because women don't wear belts to have receivers on their side and such. So we developed a watch. It's been out now about 3 months. If you could turn that slide. And the watch will operate within a 250-foot range, where the Sidekick receivers, the silver one will operate in a 500-foot range and the black one in a 2,000-foot range. And it's used a lot, not only in the home, but it can be used in retirement centers, because a lot of the retirement centers don't have doorbell chimes per se, and so we have transmitters that go on the doors to be able to allow them to have someone knock on their door, where previously a lot of times they would leave the doors unlocked, so if someone needed them they could just walk in. We also developed a mat that has a transmitter on it that we call a transmatter, because to my amazement, deaf-blind people would walk into their apartments and steal their stuff, which just amazed me. So we developed this mat that goes at the door, and if someone walks in, they step on the mat, turns on the transmitter, and then it alerts the deaf-blind person through the receiver that someone just stepped into their apartment. And the watch now has been really great because it's so user-friendly. If they get a transmitted signal from a doorbell, it vibrates twice, or from a telephone, it vibrates once, and then it displays the icon, excuse me, the icon to identify which transmitter sent the signal. They're really good also in the workplace for compliance with ADA, or the Americans with Disability Act, because if you're in a noisy work environment, you don't hear emergency systems or fire alerts. And so with our system, we can access all of that and send the signal to either tabletop receivers or body-worn receivers. And all of our products have a 5-year warranty. We manufacture our products in Waterford, Michigan, where we get a lot of snow. And I happen to hear on the news this morning, they say that if you use cell phones, it helps your memory. It's supposed to have a better memory. And I figure maybe it'd get better for me because I can hide my own Easter eggs now. But the products all have a 5-year warranty, as I said. And they are the silver and the black unit, as well as the watch, are also alarm clocks. So you can set them and use them as you would an alarm clock.
Okay, thank you very much. One of the things that I want to highlight is to make sure that you guys feel very comfortable to ask questions. So this will be very interactive. I'll kind of start, asking a couple of questions. But if you've got a question, just raise your hand and right down here we have a taker. So why don't you go ahead and raise your question?
For the panel in general, what do you encounter in terms of liability? I mean, obviously this is a supported environment. Each of your devices and services are providing a safety net for a senior. What's the liability aspect of that? What happens if something bad happens? Are you experiencing exposure? Insurance?
Well, I guess I'll go first. Anyone can sue anyone over anything these days. That's certainly a big problem if we look at our healthcare system. But our system is primarily geared toward the familiar caregiver, and so you hardly ever sue yourself. But it's just like that doctor that spends a lot of time with you. If you really become connected with him, you're very unlikely to sue him for malpractice. So if you have a system that does that for you and has those parts to it, I think it helps to mitigate. But once again, there's no way of ever completely. I wish Congress had given blanket liability to people working on national security after 9/11. You'd think they could do a little bit for taking care of the grandparents.
Other comments?
With ours, with the deaf folks and deaf-blind, there isn't a lot of liability in it other than our fire equipment and carbon monoxide and likes of that, and that's all covered by the insurances that we have.
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of does come to mind is that these are really tools helping people take